You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. It is Friday, so of course it's time for our national town hall meeting with the guy I think of as America's senator, Senator Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont. His website, sanders.senate.gov. Senator, welcome.
Great to be with you, Tom.
So what's on your mind today?
Well, there's a lot that's going on. It's been a busy week. Let me just tick off some of the areas that I've been working in. I'm chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. So we have been working very hard to try to bring together legislation that I introduced, and along with Senator McCain, that passed the Senate overwhelmingly, with legislation that passed the House, in order to make sure that every eligible veteran in this country gets high-quality care in a timely manner. There are a number of places around the country where veterans are on long waiting lists. That's not acceptable, and we're working on that. The two goals is to make sure that if a veteran today can't get into a VA facility in a timely manner, short-term, he or she should be able to go to a private doctor. Longer term, obviously, we need to strengthen the VA so that they have the numbers of physicians and nurses and psychologists and other medical personnel they need. Sloan Gibson, who is the acting secretary of the VA, testified before my committee on Wednesday that they need about 10,000 new medical personnel, and we're working hard to make sure that they have that. One of the issues that I think is just really, in a sense, almost overwhelming, Tom, is that when we talk about the cost of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, it's not just the 6,700 plus people who died or the people who came back without any legs and arms. We are talking, according to a number of studies, of somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000 men and women who came home with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury. And these are really tough problems. And on any given day, if you can believe this, some 50,000 veterans are walking into VA facilities getting outpatient care for mental health issues alone. Given day, 50,000 people. So we've got a lot of work in front of us. I think VA today provides good quality care in most cases. I want to improve that care, but most importantly, right now we want to focus on access, making sure people can get in a timely manner. We held on Thursday, yesterday, a very interesting hearing on another committee a subcommittee in which I chair, which is Committee on Primary Health Care and Aging. And if I were to ask you, Tom, a question, if I were to say to you that right now the leading cause of death in the United States is heart disease, second leading cause of death is cancer, what would be your guess about the third leading cause?
I would probably guess accidents, but I don't know.
Good. Well, that's a good guess. That's not quite right, but that's up there. This will stun the American people, which is why we held this hearing. The leading cause of death, third leading cause of death in this country, is preventable deaths which occur in hospitals.
Whoa.
Okay.
Seriously?
We're talking, a recent study came out which suggests that no one knows exactly, but people don't argue with the numbers, that between 200 and 400,000 people a year die who should not die of problems that occurred in hospitals. This is not the illness they came in with. It's a problem that they acquired either through an act of commission on the part of the hospital or that the hospital is not doing something that it should be doing.
These are referred to as iatrogenic conditions.
Exactly.
Right? Doctor-caused.
Right. And one of the guys, in fact, the fellow who wrote the latest study, which was peer-reviewed, and really I've not heard people who disagree with his numbers of between 200,000 and 400,000 people a year dying in hospitals from preventable deaths. What motivated him is his own son passed away a number of years ago in a way that he should not have from preventable deaths. But you have issues of infection, and what was disturbing is, according to some of the experts that we had a great panel of folks, and one of the doctors was saying that there are hospitals in America now where you have particular types of infection which exist at a rate 10 times higher than in other hospitals. So some hospitals are doing a good job. They're addressing the problem, and others are not. So you have a discrepancy of 10 times in dealing with particular types of infection. Then you have other problems, just simple problems. And this is what the fellow who wrote, his name is Dr. James, wrote. And he said that his son collapsed while doing some running and went to the hospital. I won't go all the details. But among other things, one of the doctors understood that he should not be engaging in athletics for a while anyhow. He should not be running. That wasn't communicated to him. So what you see is very often the lack of communication to the patient. So you'll have many elderly people leaving the hospital with a dozen different drugs, not really knowing what the drugs do, not knowing when to take the drugs, not knowing the effect of mixing one drug with the other drug, just lack of basic information. We have a situation where some 15,000 people a year die from overdoses of prescription drugs, not because they intend to abuse them. This is not an addiction issue. It's because of poorly worded information on the drug bottles. So if we could do a substantially better job, and this, by the way, is not just an American problem, it's a problem that exists all over the world, in dealing with best practices to make sure that we eliminate infection as best we can, make sure that doctors are communicating effectively with other doctors so that patients have a better understanding of what their situation is, do a better job with information technology so that hospitals can transmit information to nursing homes, to rehabilitation centers. We will do a lot better in cutting down on unnecessary deaths. So that's a big issue that we've been working on.
Is there a piece, if I may, when I grew up in Michigan, hospitals were required to be not-for-profit or corporations. During the Reagan years, that changed, and I think that changed in a lot of states, and this is how Bill Frist's father made $3 billion, was buying up these formerly not-for-profit hospitals and doubling and tripling the nurse workload and cutting staff. I've had a number of nurses and a couple of physicians over the years call into this show and say that ever since their hospital went for-profit, everything's gone to hell in a handbasket.
Well, I think overworked nurses is certainly a part of the problem. And I think your point is well taken, that if you're running a hospital for profit, one of the ways that you will make more money is by putting a heavier workload on nurses and doctors, in fact. But in general, this is a national problem which has a lot to do with, I think, best practices. Some facilities have done a good job, and they use things like not unlike what they use in aviation. When you get on an airplane, your pilot goes through a checklist of all of the things that have to be done. And increasingly we're seeing that in hospitals, making sure that when a patient gets medicine, that the right patient is getting the right medicine, that you're not giving somebody else's medicine to the wrong patient, that the dosages are correct. So sometimes it's pretty basic stuff. It's like washing hands and making sure that people are washing their hands often enough and appropriately enough. So I think your point is well taken. I think for-profit hospitals, which push the envelope in terms of maximizing profits at the expense of quality care, are going to have special problems. But I think this is kind of a serious problem all over the country. The other issue I wanted to touch on is the issue of net neutrality. Early in the week, I held. Okay, we can talk about that after the break.
Yeah, we'll pick it up after the break. We'll be right back. And my apologies for steering you off on a tangent there. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. We'll be right back with more of Senator Sanders. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's Brunch with Bernie, our national town hall meeting with Senator Bernie Sanders. We'll be back with your calls for the Senator after this. And welcome back. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. Senator, did you want to...
Well, just a couple of the brief issues. One is the issue of tax inversion, where what we're seeing now in a rapidly accelerating rate these large corporations, Walgreens is the latest, who are literally moving their headquarters away from the United States. In the case of Walgreens, going to Switzerland with the express purpose. No one has any ifs, buts, or maybes about it. It's very clear, in order to avoid paying taxes in the United States. So you've got these companies, historically, corporate America over the years, thrown millions of American workers out onto the street because they moved to other countries for cheap labor. And now many of these same companies and others are now moving abroad in order to take advantages of cheaper tax rates abroad. And, it is an issue that has got to be dealt with. This country has a large deficit, but more importantly, we have enormous numbers of unmet needs in this country for our kids, for our elderly. And if these large corporations are deserting the United States to go to abroad, we've got to deal with that issue. If they want to do business in the United States, if they want to do business with Medicare, Medicaid, with the defense industry, you know what? They're going to have to pay their fair share of taxes, and they can't run abroad. It's a huge issue. The problem is accelerating, and it's one that we have to deal with.
All right. Anything else, or shall we pick up a call?
Questions.
Okay. Kathy, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish Network in Etna, Wyoming. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I wanted to ask you, I was watching C-SPAN earlier this week, and I saw McCain, Hoeven, and Barrasso standing on the floor giving their pitch for natural gas and liquid natural gas and shipping it to Europe, and particularly mentioning Ukraine. They said that this fuel is not going to cost the taxpayers anything, and they said this over and over again. But I called all three offices because I know for a fact here in this state we're having to clean up the abandoned wells that companies are becoming bankrupt, and they're walking away after they've made all their profits, and we taxpayers are cleaning up the mess, not to mention what it's doing to the environment. But my question to you is it illegal for them to stand on the floor and blatantly lie to the public?
Kathy, unfortunately, it is not. I mean, that's what the First Amendment is about, is the right of anybody to say anything that they want to say. And when you're a member of Congress, you get more immunity if you say it within the halls of Congress. But the issue of, what you see is Republicans using every opportunity that they can to push benefits for large multinational corporations, whether it's oil, gas, coal, or whatever it may be. In this case, we're dealing right now with the Keystone pipeline. We're dealing with provisions in the Ex-Im Bank, which help fund coal-burning plants around the world at exactly the moment when the scientific community is as clear as it can be that global warming is a huge and catastrophic problem facing this planet. The idea of expanding the use of fossil fuels rather than moving boldly and aggressively as quickly as we can to weatherization, energy efficiency, and sustainable energies is exactly what we have to do.
We'll be back with more of Senator Sanders in just a moment. It's 20 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie segment. Check out the Senator's website at sanders.senate.gov and also his Facebook page over on Facebook. We'll be right back. 20 minutes past the hour. It's a Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. And Thomas in Flint, Michigan. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders and Tom, thank you for the opportunity. The question I have is, with all the decisions being made by the Supreme Court, what's the best way to try and get C-SPAN in there to watch them as at least recorded? Like SCOTUS on C-SPAN hashtag or something like that. What's the best way to do that?
Well, I think you got to put pressure on the Supreme Court to make that happen. Congress is on TV. I was on 2 hearings this week, which were televised on C-SPAN, and I think the Supreme Court should own up before the American people what they what they're talking about. But beyond that, beyond making sure that the American people can hear what these guys have to say, I think I agree with you that the Supreme Court has done just extraordinary damage to this country in recent years. I mean, just the last couple of weeks with this Hobby Lobby decision, which says that an employer can make medical decisions for women in terms of their reproductive rights, in terms of the outrageous decision versus Citizens United, and the other one dealing with McCutcheon, making it easier for billionaires to buy elections. And I think the American people have got to be very active in speaking out against these Supreme Court decisions. Supreme Court does not live in a vacuum. They will respond to pressure. Just this week, as a matter of fact, on the floor of the Senate, we voted to overturn, in a sense, the Hobby Lobby decision to make sure that employers cannot avoid providing health benefits to women in terms of reproductive rights and in terms of birth control. We are also working hard, and there will be a bill coming to the floor of the Senate within the next couple of months to overturn this disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. So in terms of the Supreme Court, in terms of these terrible 5-4 decisions that the very conservative members are making, I hope that listeners are actively engaged in trying to help us overturn some of these awful decisions.
Okay. Anita in San Antonio, Texas. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I want to ask you about the long-term unemployed and if anything's, being done about that. I don't hear anybody talking about it. And I have a brother that's been unemployed for a year, and he luckily has family help, but I just don't know what people are doing. I don't know how they're making it.
Well, Anita, thanks for raising the issue. I wish I could give you some welcoming news. I can't. The Senate passed legislation which would extend long-term unemployment benefits. And what I think people should understand is that the numbers of people, percentage of people who today are unemployed for long periods of time is almost at record-breaking levels. So while we have seen some upticks in the economy and a lowering of unemployment rates, long-term unemployed folks are having a really, really hard time getting work, and they do need help. And I believe that, and I think a majority of the people in the Senate believe that. We managed to get something passed in the Senate. But what every listener has got to understand is that the Republicans, the right-wing Republicans who control the House, their agenda is pretty clear. And that is any tax break that comes along for billionaires or for large corporations, they are for. Any program that comes along to help working people, lower-income people, the middle class, they are against. And that means, in this case, they are adamantly against extending long-term unemployment benefits, despite the fact that, A, it will help a substantial number of people, and B, it is good for the economy, because when those folks, including Anita's brother, have some money in their pocket, they're going to go out spending it. When they do that, they create more jobs. But whether it's long-term unemployment benefits, whether it is Medicare, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's education, these guys are voting no, 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 cuts for working families, ignoring the needs of the middle class, but more tax breaks for the wealthy and large corporations. That, simply stated, is exactly what the agenda is of the Republican Party and the folks who control the House.
Paul in South Lyon, Michigan. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, thanks, guys. The only thing the clueless, do-nothing Republicans know how to do is destroy jobs with their budget cuts, shutdowns, debt ceilings, sequesters, yet they constantly say, where are the jobs? Well, thanks to the policies of the Democrats and an independent senator from Vermont, there has been 10 million jobs created in the last 5 years. The rest of the jobs are in fixing our roads, bridges, schools, building VA hospitals, reinstating unemployment insurance, and raising the minimum wage. Isn't it true that the only way all these jobs will be created is if the Republicans are voted out of Congress?
Well, Paul, thank you for that question, and I agree with exactly what you said. Tom, I hate to sound, overly partisan here, but sometimes if you're telling the truth in terms of what's going on right now, and that is what a extremely right-wing U.S. House of Representatives is doing. You got to tell the truth. And when you do that, you are being partisan. And Paul's point is exactly right. While we have made progress, I want everybody, Americans have a short memory span. Let's not forget where we were when Bush left office and Obama came into office. Republicans are saying, the economy is not doing as good as it should be. Well, no kidding. It is certainly not. Wages are too low. Unemployment remains too high. Where were we 6 years ago, when Bush left office? We were losing 700,000 jobs a month. We're on the verge of an international financial collapse. So has job growth been as strong as I would like to see it? Absolutely not. Have many of the new jobs been created being low-wage jobs, part-time jobs? Yes, that's the unfortunate truth. But Paul's point is right on, spot on. And that is we can create jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. We can, for every $1 trillion we invest, we can create 13 million jobs doing work that absolutely needs to be done, and we're getting no support for the Republicans to do that.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Your calls for the senator right after this. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Sanders on the line with us, answering your questions in our national town hall meeting. And Al in Buffalo, New York, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon, Al.
I'd like to say right now we have we have 2,609 signatures. We need 3,000. We plan to sue the current GOP in Congress.
Is this a MoveOn.org petition?
Yeah, that's exactly MoveOn.org.
Mm-hmm.
So the GOP,
in response to their suit against Obama.
That and the fact that they have basically, here I'll read what it says, the GOP Congress have not done their jobs. They keep wasting our tax dollars on fake investigations, trying to sue the president, shutting down the government, doing absolutely nothing.
You got it, Al. I got it. We know the rest of the story. You're absolutely right. And this is, it's funny, Al, if you know history, in 1948, Harry Truman was not expected to win re-election. He inherited the office after Roosevelt died. And he won. And he ran against a do-nothing Congress, Republican Congress. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know what it was like in 47 or 48, but this Congress is the biggest do-nothing Congress in the modern history of America. We're accomplishing absolutely nothing. And let me be clear. The reason is that the Republican Party is not interested in Congress in anything other than more tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires and large corporations, and in cutting every program that benefits the middle class or working families of this country. And what we need to do is not just sue them. More importantly, we need to throw them out of office. And I hope very much that working families throughout this country understand that if they don't get involved in the political process, as bad as the situation is today, if the Republicans gain control over the Senate, it's going to get worse. And you're going to see savage attacks that we have been able to beat back up to now in terms of cuts in Medicare, in terms of cuts in Social Security, in cuts in Medicaid, cuts in education, cuts in nutrition. And in many instances, we've been able to beat those back, and in some cases, such as long-term unemployment, we have not. And we heard earlier in this program that people are hurting because they're not getting those benefits. But there is a war going on against working families and the middle class, led by the billionaire class, represented by the Republican Party. And if only 40% of the people come out to vote in this November election, which is what the estimate is, and if 70 to 80% of low-income working people do not vote, and young people do not vote in overwhelming numbers, it is very likely the Republicans will gain control over the Senate with an agenda that represents just the 1%. So, Al, thank you for what you're doing in terms of educating people and organizing people. That is exactly what we need to do.
Michelle in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, thank you so much for everything that you do. I have a question about Social Security. I keep reading that more and more Social Security offices are being closed and that there's a move afoot to outsource those jobs to private companies to put Social Security basically online, making it less and less accessible to old folks like me. What can be done to change this?
Well, thank you, Michelle, for raising that issue. When I talk about the Republican assault on the middle class and working families, Michelle just raises one of 50 ways that is happening. We have fought back against enormous efforts to cut Social Security benefits through a so-called chain CPI. And my office and some other senators and some people in the House work with senior groups and unions and women's groups and disability groups, and we prevented cutbacks in benefits. But what is going on, what Michelle is talking about, is that in terms of administration, the needed manpower to make sure that when people process claims, they get timely responses, we have seen significant cuts. And what Michelle is talking about is that offices around the country are being shut down. And the argument is, well, it's not a problem. Everybody can go online. Well, for a variety of reasons, not everybody can go online. And sometimes people need face-to-face contact, but you need to be able to speak to somebody on a telephone without waiting 3 hours listening to music before you can talk to somebody. So Michelle's point is right in terms of Social Security, and that is an issue we're conscious of, Michelle, and we're working on. It is exactly the same issue in terms of the IRS. What the Republicans have done is cut back on funding for the IRS so that the IRS will not be able to audit their millionaire and billionaire friends or organizations that use the IRS so they can get away with not paying their fair share of taxes. And that's basically what it's about. So what Republicans day after day are trying to do is destroy the infrastructure of government so that we can provide quality care to people through government services, or to make sure that the wealthy and the powerful stop paying their fair share of taxes. And Social Security is just one example.
Jim in Lockport, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, once again, it's a privilege to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Jim.
Yeah, my big question is this, Senator Sanders. I've touched base with your staffers, and I've asked them a question, and hopefully they relayed the message to you, is why is it that the Democratic Party doesn't remind the Republican Party of the $24 billion they wasted on that shutdown? Now, you and Senator McCain had devised a bill for the VA hospital, and I thought it was a pretty good bill. And that $24 billion could have been used to strengthen the VA,
yep,
along with our border security issue and the refugees coming across. So we should be pounding that issue like salt into an open wound, I believe.
Well, Jim, I mean,
Ouch.
That is, look, when you talk about the government shutdown, essentially what you are talking about, and Jim is right, I think it is an issue we have to keep pounding away in, is that what the Republicans have been absolutely adamant about is that in the midst of enormous need in this country, a crumbling infrastructure, we are moving toward a third world in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of bridges, which are in absolute disrepair, roads, water systems, wastewater plants, a rail system, airports. We need to invest hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Republicans don't want to do that. In terms of the high cost of college education and student debts, we need to help those young people not be chained down by these high debts, make college affordable to all of our people regardless of income. In terms of global warming, we need to transform our energy system and create a substantial number of new jobs, moving away from fossil fuel into energy efficiency, weatherization, and sustainable energy. And yet on each and every one of these issues, the Republican Party says no, 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 and they're working on behalf of the big money interest. So the government shutdown, Jim, is one example of it. It takes place every single day. And the message has got to get out to working families that we are going to see the continued collapse of the middle class. You're going to continue to see more and more people living in poverty. You're going to continue to see more and more wealth and income inequality. 95% of all new income today goes to the top 1%. And in terms of wealth, the numbers are equally bad. So people have got to get involved. They've got to stand up. They've got to fight back, or else the future of this country is going to be pretty dim indeed.
Charlie in South Portland, Maine, watching on sanders.senate.gov on the website. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I'm your neighbor here in Maine. It's wonderful to talk to you. I just have one quick question. Why doesn't Harry Reid get rid of the 60-vote majority on bills, period? Because if the Republicans win and take back the Senate, even if it's 51-49, they're not going to hesitate to do that in a heartbeat. And if we had done that in the first 2 years, Obama had the Congress, they had Pelosi as Speaker, and all those bills were passed. Immigration, jobs for construction, infrastructure, all those votes passed in the House.
Hey, Charlie, you know what?
Get them passed in the
Charlie?
Yes.
I agree with you. 4 words. I agree with you. You are right. I think we should have done it. I have fought for that. The answer that as to why Reid has not done that, I think is a pretty simple one. We don't have the votes. So right now in the Democratic caucus, there are 53 Democrats, 2 independents, Angus King of your state and myself. A strong majority of those people agree with what you said. And I want everybody to understand what Charlie is talking about. Many people think that to get a bill passed in the Senate, you need a majority vote. You win 51-49, 52-48, 48-46, people are absent, whatever it is. That is not the case. That used to be the case, but as a result of Republican obstructionism, every important or semi-important piece of legislation now requires 60 votes. We don't have 60 votes, which means one of 2 things happen. Either nothing happens, we can't get the 60 votes, which is almost always the case, or occasionally, if you get 60 votes, you have to compromise it down and make it a bill much weaker than it otherwise should be. Now, what Harry Reid did do, because he was just profoundly disgusted with Republicans not only filibustering against all types of important pieces of legislation, but against presidential nominations for a variety of positions or judges, he did change the rules regarding nominations, presidential nominations, and judges. And we have gotten a lot of those guys through in a reasonable period of time. But you're right, Charlie. We should take it through all pieces of legislation.
We'll be back with Senator Sanders in our Brunch with Bernie hour right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And check out Senator Sanders' website, sanders.senate.gov, and also his Facebook page. And welcome back. Joan in Chicago, Illinois. Actually, Joan, hold on. Your radio station is off the air or is in a commercial break right now. Let's pick up a Free Speech TV call here. Jared watching Free Speech TV in Burlington, Vermont on the cable system there. Jared, you are on the air with your senator.
Bernie, this is Jared Wood. I'm from Burlington, Vermont. When Ross Perot was running for president, he talked about the sucking sound. He referred to NAFTA. Since then, we've had not only NAFTA, but we've also had CAFTA, and looming is SHAFTA. My question is not only economically, but politically, we're tying ourselves onto the Far East. As it stands now, we have agreed to defend Japan, and Japan is under the Abe administration, is moving in the direction of going to war. I guess my question is there any way to reevaluate some of the sort of 1914 type interlocking agreements, which will using Mr. Perot's words, suck us into yet another conflict?
Well, Jared, your question touches on a lot of issues, trade and foreign policy in particular. You're talking, as I trust you know, as a Vermonter, to somebody who has been vigorous in opposition to all of these trade agreements. You may recall that way back when NAFTA was being decided, we had a big rally down in Montpelier, Vermont, in opposition to NAFTA and opposed CAFTA and probably most importantly, permanent normal trade relations with China. Sadly enough, and this speaks to the, in a sense, corruption of American politics, is that it didn't matter who was president of the United States. When big money wanted a trade agreement which would allow companies to shut down in America and move to Mexico or move to China, hire low-wage workers, and then bring their products back in to America tariff-free, the results of which have cost us, by the way, millions of decent-paying jobs and huge trade deficits. Both parties, the presidents said yes, whether it was Reagan, Clinton, Bush, Obama. This unfettered free trade has gone on for decades now. In my view, it has been a disaster. It is one of the contributing factors to the race to the bottom and why the middle class in this country is disappearing. You know, young people in America don't even know that there was once a time when you went shopping and you bought products that were made in the USA and not in China. Many of them don't know that. And yet, of course, that is the case right now. So, Jared, in my view, we have got to fundamentally rethink all of these trade agreements. We have got to rebuild our manufacturing base. We have lost over 50,000 factories in this country in the last 15 years, and that's millions of decent-paying jobs. And you're not going to have a middle class unless you have manufacturing, and you're not going to have manufacturing unless we change these trade policies. Your other question dealt more with foreign policy issues, and I guess entangling alliances, maybe to quote George Washington here. And I think, you know, that's something we should be rethinking. We have gone through 2 terrible wars, which have been very costly to us in terms of human life and treasure. And, I do think we should be rethinking some of that.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us in our Brunch with Bernie hour. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you 10 minutes before the hour. Joan in Chicago. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi. I was wondering about the proposal of building more VA hospitals. Is that going to be to take care of what we have now? I was wondering, like, in the future, are we going to still need those hospitals unless we're going to be in continual conflict?
Well, that's a good question, Joan. I certainly hope that we're not going to be in continuous wars. What the VA is trying to do, what they increasingly do, is not build new hospitals unless they have a sense that in that particular area there is going to be the need for those hospitals. We are seeing in certain parts of the country significant increases in the numbers of people who are coming into the VA. In other parts of the country, we're not seeing that at all. Mostly what they are doing, just to address your issue, is leasing, not buying, not building. So they're not buying, they're not building, but they are leasing facilities often in a 10-year period. So they can make a decision if they need to expand, they can renew the lease, they can go someplace else. If they have fewer people coming in, they can downsize. So it is, certainly the intention of creating more space for the VA is to make sure that we can better accommodate the folks who need VA services. Right now, in many facilities, there are not the examination rooms that doctors need, and that slows down their ability to take care of veterans. So, no, this is not anticipating more wars. This is taking care of veterans so they get quality care in a timely manner.
Mark in Chico, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning, Senator Sanders and Tom. Senator Sanders, I called you about my feet, and I want to thank you and your staff. I have an appointment with a doctor on Monday, and I just really appreciate
Well, thank you very much.
Help.
I guess that's through the VA, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's going to be a private doctor.
Good.
But yeah.
But Mark, you had a question for the
VA
senator?
spends right now almost $5 billion a year contracting out to private doctors and facilities, and where the VA can't provide the service, that's what they do, and that's what they should do. And I'm glad, Mark, that we were able to help you.
But I do have a question. This Hobby Lobby birth control, that affects all of us, not just women. That affects all our families and everything. And with a Republican Congress, how are we going to deal with this situation? Because it's a big can of worms that has been opened up,
Yes,
and
it
it's going to get worse and worse.
Well, you're right. And we tried. I will tell you that just this week we tried to get legislation to overturn what the Supreme Court had done. We were not successful. I think we had 3 Republicans supporting us, and we could not get, as I mentioned earlier, the 60 votes that we need on almost every important piece of legislation. So majority voted to address that issue, but we didn't get the 60 votes, and overwhelming opposition from the Republicans. And you're right. It opens up a can of worms. If I am an employer, and if I say not just that I'm not comfortable providing insurance to women for birth control, what happens if I'm saying somebody in my office has AIDS, somebody is gay, I am not comfortable, it's against my moral principles, or maybe to be an extreme case, maybe I'm somebody who doesn't believe in modern medicine at all, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can carry this to ludicrous extremes, but the point is that it should not be an employer dictating what the healthcare needs and desires are of employees, which, by the way, goes well beyond Hobby Lobby. It goes to the fundamental issue of whether healthcare is a right or a privilege, or just maybe you work for a good employer who has a generous healthcare plan. Maybe you work for an employer who provides no healthcare at all, and you have nothing. In America today, despite the modest gains of the Affordable Care Act, we've got about 40 million Americans who have no health insurance at all. We are the only country in the industrialized world that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right through a national health care program. We end up spending far more than any other country per capita on health care, and our outcomes are not particularly good. So the real issue here is not just Hobby Lobby, as bad as that decision is should every American be entitled to health care as a right? Should that, of course, include reproductive rights and birth control? And the answer is yes, but that's the fight that we have to wage.
Got about 2 minutes, Senator. You want to take another call or wrap it up?
Let's take a call.
Okay. Tony in New Lenox, Illinois. Quick question for the senator, please.
Yes, it's my honor. Just want to say every week at work I push the Sanders-Warren ticket, and that leads me to the question, Mr. Sanders, are you or anybody on your staff currently developing ways to deal with obstructionism once you are president? And you have yourself a great weekend, okay?
Well, the answer, Tony, whether I am president or anybody else is president, let me be very clear about this. Yes, I have thought a lot about it. And I will tell you what, many Americans may not want to hear, is that no president, no matter how good he or she may be, is able to address the enormous problems facing this country unless there is, in a sense, a political revolution, which means that millions and millions of citizens in this country have got to be acting politically in a way they have never acted before. We can't beat the Republicans in Capitol Hill just through negotiations. What we need to do is have millions of people stand up and say, you know what? We are going to create the millions of jobs that this country needs. We are going to provide health care to all people. We are going to address the crisis of climate change. And anybody in Washington, anybody in Congress who is not prepared to do that, you're going to be unelected pretty shortly. And when people speak, when workers speak, when young people speak, when students speak, when women speak, by the millions, that is when change takes place. And no president is going to accomplish what has to be done without that type of political revolution and that type of grassroots activism needed to support progressive change.
Senator, thanks so much for being with us today.
All right, my pleasure, Doc. Take care.
We'll talk to you next week. We'll be right back.